Hi friends, welcome back to the channel. Today is apple processing day. So we'll be processing these apples that we picked up from a local farmer's market, and I will be turning them into 3 different items. We're going to make applesauce, we're going to make apple pie filling, and we're also going to get some apple juice as well. So this is our setup for today. First, we have our apples that have been freshly washed and cleaned, so they're ready to go. So first we're going to start off by peeling and slicing the apples using our KitchenAid attachment. And then the sliced apples, I'm going to go ahead and add them to our juice steamers, which we'll then use to create our apple juice. And then once we get the apple juice from our apple slices, the apple puree, we're then going to add to the crock pot, and that's how we're going to get our applesauce. And then I'm not going to steam all of the apples. We'll leave a couple of apples at the end, and those are the ones we're going to dice up and make our apple pie filling. So it's a lot of work, a lot of different steps, but come sit back, enjoy the project with us today. Now I'm just using my KitchenAid to slice and peel the apples, and once I take them off the machine, I go ahead and dice them up into smaller pieces. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I am putting them in the juice steamer, and because I do want to have the byproduct of the steamed juice be applesauce. I don't want them to process for too long in the juice steamer, so I'm going to go ahead and chop them up into smaller pieces to make the process go a little bit faster. I'm just adding the first batch of diced apples to our juice steamer, and this will go for about 20 minutes, and then once it starts producing the juice, we will drain it out, and I'll add the apple puree to the crock pot for applesauce. And after about 20 minutes of boiling, here we have our first set of juice from our first steamer. So I'm going to go ahead and drain that out, and then we're going to add the steamed apples to our crock pot. Before we added the steamed apples to the crock pot, I did go ahead and added some of the freshly diced apples to each of the crock pot so they can start breaking down, and then we're going to add the steamed pureed apples on top of those, so we have a mixture of both for texture wise. Here I am processing more apples. This process felt like if it was never ending because we just had so many apples. But this is the last batch that we're doing now, and this is the portion that we'll utilize for the apple pie filling. So I am actually going to be dicing these into smaller pieces, and then we'll be utilizing them for the apple pie filling. And I'll show you how I do the apple pie filling that's freezer friendly. So here I am dicing up the apple slices that had a little bit of a skin on them, but they were still good. So I'm not going to let them go to waste. I'm going to utilize them in an apple pie filling. So I'm going to do two types of apple pie filling. One with just plain apple slices that are diced, and then the second one is going to be diced apples with a little bit of skin on them, and they'll be fine for an apple pie. I just didn't want them in the apple sauce because I do have a toddler, and he's primarily the one that's going to be eating the applesauce, so I didn't want the skin in it, just to make it easier for myself. Here we have it, 2 containers of diced apples that we will use to make our apple pie filling. And then this is a container of all our apple skin and cores For this particular project, I'm going to go ahead and just toss that in the trash, but for the future project, I'll utilize it for something else, maybe next year. But I just didn't have the bandwidth to make another project out of the waste. So I'm going to go ahead and toss it in the compost pile, actually. And here we are emptying the last bit of apple juice from our juice steamers. So I've been emptying that into a container, and then next we're going to go ahead and get that bottled up. But before we do that, I'm going to utilize the bottom pan for each juice canister, and I'll utilize that as the pot to start cooking down my apple pie filling. So here I have the diced apples that are washed and ready to be kind of sauteed down to make our pie filling. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add them to those pots that I mentioned. I'm going to be doing it in 2 separate containers to separate the filling with the skin and the filling without the skin. Added a little bit of water so the apples don't burn in the pan, and then I'll just cover them and let them start to saute down a little bit. It doesn't take very long, maybe less than a minute. And then I'm going to come back and start adding my mixture to the diced apples. Essentially, I add a little bit of arrowroot powder, salt, cinnamon, and a little bit of brown sugar. And apple pie filling, you basically create it to your liking, how sweet you want it, how sweet you don't want it. So that was what I added to ours. And then I just let it continue to saute and cook down. this step goes really fast, so you do have to keep an eye on the stove. And because the apple pie filling will continue to cook in the actual pie, we really don't want to cook it too much. In this step, essentially, you're just kind of mixing all of those ingredients together and letting that sugar start to dissolve a little bit. And once that happens, you just turn it off, and we're just going to let it cool, and then we're going to get it packaged up for containers that we'll add to our freezers. In the next clip, we're going to be bottling up our apple juice into these small little bottles, and then we're going to be packing away our apple pie filling in some glass containers. I do like utilizing these little mini bottles because they're like the perfect size for an adult if you just want to take a shot of apple juice, and then it's the perfect size for a sippy cup for our son. So I'll go ahead and just toss these in the freezer, and then basically whenever we want to use them, I'll basically take a bunch out, put in the refrigerator to thaw off, and they taste just as fresh as they were the day we created them. And here we are on the home stretch of this project. The last thing we have to complete is the applesauce. So this has been cooking away on medium for most of the day, and as you can see, it is boiling. So now the last thing to do is I'm giving it a good stir, and then I'm going to come in with my hand blender and blend it up until it's smooth and it's the consistency that we want. And then there's one more batch of the pureed apple from the juice steamer that I'm going to go ahead and add to both, and then give it a final blend, and that kind of gives it a little bit of a thickness towards the end. Then we're going to let this cool and we'll get it packed away, and we're actually going to put these in our deli containers. The small one, I think it's a 16 ounce, I can't recall. And we also have some 32 ounce ones as well. So we're going to get these packed away in our deli containers, and they'll be ready for the freezer as well. I like to leave my applesauce just pure applesauce. I don't add any cinnamon, any sugar, anything. I just leave it as pure applesauce and freeze it. When we do go to eat it, if we want it a little bit sweeter, this one's pretty sweet, but if we want it a little bit sweeter, at that point I'll add a little bit of a honey, or if I add additional fruit or something like that. But I like to freeze it as just pure plain applesauce at this point. And here we have it, friends. This is the finished products. We have our apple juice, our applesauce, and then we also have our apple pie filling, all packed away in their containers and ready to be added to our freezer. And we'll utilize these for our various meals, snacks throughout the next upcoming months. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us today. Thank you for sitting back and enjoying this project with us. We appreciate you, and we hope you'll watch some more of our videos.